the rules package we're going to be voting on today does some terrible things. One of them things it does is gut the Office of Congressional Ethics. I've never seen a party come to power and say, we want to lower the ethics standards and dismantle the ethics body. They are so partisan that they're imposing retroactive term limits because they know that'll kick off 3 of the 4 Democratic board members on the Congressional Ethics Panel. They are putting a limit that you can't hire anyone after 30 days to basically make it very hard for that panel to investigate. Why? Because they don't want that panel to investigate members of Congress who aided and abetted on January 6th. They don't want that panel to investigate people who defied January 6th committee's subpoenas. And so they know that many of their members are vulnerable to that kind of ethics investigation with an independent body created in 2006 because of the Abramoff scandal. That entire scandal, some of you may not remember, but it was basically massive lobbying, people going to jail. This independent body was created. By the way, it's investigated 52 Democrats and 50 Republicans, so very bipartisan. And they were trying to turn this into a partisan organization and defang it where they don't have staff. The other part of the Rules Committee, things that they're doing is requiring votes on the debt ceiling that isn't linked to anything else, and that there are people on their side who really want to default on the debt ceiling, not raise the debt ceiling. Let me just be clear: the debt ceiling is about past debt. It's not about future spending. When we don't raise the debt ceiling, what we're saying is the money we owe, we're not going to pay. What is the consequence of that? The consequences of that could be soaring interest rates. It could be massive depreciation of our currency. It could mean Social Security benefits don't go out, nutritional benefits don't go out. I mean, it would hamstring the United States government's ability to pay past obligations. And these are the things that the Rules Committee, the rules that we're voting on tonight, that Kevin McCarthy has given promises to the far right that they will have the ability to stop the debt ceiling increase. Usually debt ceiling increase is put in a mess passed bill, and that's how it passes. And they want to prevent that from taking place. So we're in a challenging time. I mean, there are reports that subcommittee chairmanships were handed out to get people's votes in the final analysis. And that's just not how the process is supposed to work. And yet this is something that McCarthy and the Republican leadership were doing. I mean, I was flabbergasted. I was on the floor on very late to Friday night before coming back to the district, and a fist fight almost broke out between the chair of the Armed Services Committee and Matt Gaetz, because the rumor is that Kevin McCarthy promised Matt Gaetz the chairmanship of the Military Personnel Committee. The military personnel, my luck is I'm the ranking member likely on that committee. It's a very important committee. It has oversight over the entire military, our troops, the benefits they should have, the pay they should have. And some of the far right want to make that committee about wokeism and whether the military is teaching our troops about woke issues, which they're of course not. They're teaching them to be respectful of each other and engage in critical thinking. But that is the type of extremism that is hijacking the modern Republican Party. And, you know, I remember, of course, vividly January 6th. There was a bomb threat in my building in Cannon that we were told to evacuate. I started going towards the Capitol, and then I got frantic texts saying, go back to your office. And I said, what happened? They said the Capitol is being invaded. I literally at the time thought that there was some foreign invader invading our Capitol. And so many of us went back into the Cannon building. We thought that the risk of going into the Capitol was more than the risk of going back into Cannon despite the bomb threat. And I locked myself in my office till 1 or 2 in the morning. And I have such admiration for Nancy Pelosi. And one of the proudest moments of my 6 years in Congress is when at 1 a.m, we all went to the floor of the House to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and do our duty to certify the election. But that was a searing memory, and it should be a searing memory not just for those of us who were at the Capitol, but for day after McCarthy basically said that Donald Trump should resign. And you may not remember, but and many of you do remember probably, he was very, very critical of the president. But then as every day has passed, politics has creeped in, and we have not had that accountability for someone who basically instigated an insurrection on our capital. And we see the consequences not just for our nation, but for the world. I mean, Bolsonaro, I don't think anyone would doubt he was inspired by what he saw Trump do. And here he has instigated his supporters to attack the democratic institutions in Brazil. We are living in very difficult times where the problem is not just that we have had insurrection. The problem is not just that we've had people call violence. The problem is that there has not been accountability. There has not been sufficient accountability. The person who flipped from calling for Trump's resignation to courting Donald Trump is now Speaker of the House. The ethics committee that would be investigating the members who aided the insurrection is now being gutted. The reality is that while I have a lot of respect for the Justice Department and Merrick Garland, they have gone after the foot soldiers, not the masterminds of the January 6th. The people who actually did the PowerPoints, who plotted the overthrow of the election, they have not been held accountable yet. So I guess if I have one message, and I want to now answer people's questions and engage in a conversation, it is that we have to demand accountability. We have to demand that the people at the top who plan these things suffer the consequences under the law. That we took a big step backwards, in my view, with the speaker election, where the lesson for many is, well, actually cozying up to Donald Trump works politically. That's how Kevin McCarthy got the votes. So instead of accountability, what we have shown last week is that Trumpism still plays off politically. And the only way I believe that we defeat Trumpism is when we start to have accountability for those who engaged in the overthrow, tried to engage in the overthrow of our democracy. And that's what I hope all of us on this call as citizens can advocate and continue to advocate for that accountability, the accountability that the January 6th committee demanded, the accountability that so many of us know just watching what happened is required. And I appreciate all of you taking the time to reflect on those events and continue to engage in standing up for our democracy.
Congressman Khanna, thank you for that riveting eyewitness recollection. And at the very last, your comments at the very end there touched upon a theme that are being picked up by the attendees, which is the theme of accountability. Renee Wise asked, Brazil just ordered an attack on their presidential palace and Congress and Supreme Court. Many of the people that were involved in that were involved in our own insurrection here in the United States. Why are these people still not being held accountable? Why do they run free and are allowed to instigate other attacks on democracies in other countries? How do we prevent this from happening in the next election cycle?
Well, one, I think that the midterms, thanks to many people on this call and others, did help stand up for democracy. A lot of the election deniers lost, to the election deniers and Secretary of State offices lost. It would have been catastrophic if some of those people had won.
Congressman, you're going to have to repeat your answer here. We're losing your transmission.
And I felt a little better the morning after the midterms than I did before the midterms. But the question, the accountability, can you hear me? place.
Now we can. We lost you for about 45 seconds.
Hear me?
Yes, now we can. We lost you about 45 seconds.
Okay, but well, I was just saying it as I head to my office here. I was just saying that I think the questioner is exactly right, that there has to be more accountability. I mean, I feel better after the midterms that some of the worst election deniers lost, and fortunately, we have secretaries of state who are going to uphold the rule of law and aren't going to play shenanigans. Fortunately, the midterms were affirming of democracy. But the reality is, I see the people who are being held accountable and who are being prosecuted. And they're the folks who were, sitting in people's offices and caught up in mob violence. But as my remarks indicated, they are not the people who actually plotted the entire insurrection. There are PowerPoint presentations of a plan to overthrow our election, where they were trying to create doubt, trying to create chaos, having the state legislatures declare the election corrupt with no basis. And the people who plotted that, they're the ones who need to be held accountable. And I agree that Brazil and what Bolsonaro is doing, he looked at what Trump did, and he said, well, if it worked there, why not work in Brazil? So when the United States is not holding our people accountable, it sends a terrible message around the world to other authoritarian leaders who may say, we want to try something similar. And that is why the accountability is not out of any sense of retribution or anger or getting even. It is about standing up for the rule of law so that people in the future don't try these actions.
There was a question from Jack Weinstein. Do you know of any, and this may be for our organizers too, do you know of any way to fund efforts to prosecute those that are should be held accountable? I know this is a Department of Justice function. We have a special counsel. Is there any kind of outside funding sources that you're aware of that can help spur that kind of activity?
Jack, I'm not aware of an outside group. I mean, I think that a lot of this is in the authority of Attorney General Merrick Garland, and I think that he's been very responsible, and I appreciate his integrity. I just think, though, that we have to that we have to move faster, and that we need to get to the people at the top. And so I think that is going to require more public mobilization, that doing events like this, that people have not forgotten and they want accountability. But I don't think it's a resource issue. It's an issue of the Justice Department making the decisions of when to prosecute. And I get that they're building the case step by step, and they've been doing a great job at that. But they, so far, the people at the highest levels have not been held accountable.
Dave Maslak asks a good question, and I don't know if you've had a chance to do any analysis of this, but Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is clear. Anybody that has taken an oath of office that's participated in insurrection should be removed from office. Why haven't we exercised, is the Section 3 self-executing? Is it require judicial intervention? How can we utilize that section of the 14th Amendment, which was, I'll add, which was adopted after the Civil War to address those who had participated in the Confederacy from being excluded from office?
Bruce Ackerman has written about this, and I think we should explore it. My understanding is it then goes to a three-person judge, a circuit court in DC, and I think if they were to affirm the Section 3 bar on people running, or someone like Trump running for office, then I don't think the Supreme Court would necessarily overturn it. So I guess my view is at this point we need to pursue every avenue of accountability, and that should be on the table as one of the avenues to pursue.
Great. Scott Honeywell was listening about the upcoming vote on the rules package that's coming before the Congress and the House. Do you have any reason to believe that there'd be, at least 5 GOP members, assuming a unified Democratic caucus, to vote against the rules presented?
Yes, because they have not been good at counting votes, as last week
Right.
demonstrated. So usually I'd say no, but they said McCarthy was going to win so many times and then didn't win. You never know. But my guess is, unfortunately, that they will pass the rules. And here's what the negative is of last week. We were so focused on McCarthy that there was not enough public attention or media attention on the awful things in this rules package. I mean, people haven't even talked about that they're trying to gut the Office of Congressional Ethics so they don't investigate Santos and don't investigate the members of Congress who were responsible of January 6th. And that's not been in the news because the news was all about McCarthy. So they're going to try to pass late tonight a rules package that is anti-democratic. And it's very concerning. So I guess I'm going to hope there are a couple of people who have expressed doubt. But I'm skeptical we're going to be able to block it.
Yeah. Renee Wise asked, is it only Merrick Garland and the Justice Department has the power to hold them accountable? Why were the members of Congress directly involved in the coup allowed to be seated? It's kind of the Section 3, 14th Amendment. But why were there? I mean, you just had 2 years where you had a Democratic controlled House. Why was that not more on the table? Are you there, Congressman? We're witnessing the vagaries of technology. In the meantime, if the attendees could continue, I only have 11 questions. I've already kind of summarized all of them. If you could pour more Q&A into the chat, I'd appreciate it. Well, Congressman Khanna, I guess, has to check back in now that he's in his office. We should get better reception from him for the balance of it. There
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
All right.
So I'll ask the question again.
I got it. I said that the reason we didn't unseat them is there has to be some formal finding against individuals, either by an ethics committee, Justice Department, et cetera. I mean, you can't just have the press report say, well, someone engaged in insurrection. And so we need that evidence. And I share the frustration that we haven't had that yet.
Is there anything at the executive level or the judicial level now that the House has lost, or even in the Senate Judiciary Committee? Is there some way, some other alternative process that might now make the adequate findings?
Well, I think that the ethics committee could, but they're trying to gut that. The Justice Department could. Those are the two real avenues of having those findings.
Okay. And again, there's this frustration about what is perceived to be too slow. We're getting a question. Are there any, what can we do to push the Department of Justice to move quicker to prosecute the insurrectionists? You identified the issue. You think he's being thorough. I actually, think he is working his way up, but
I think he is. I think he's a person of integrity. I think but I think that the consequences are so severe that I, as a citizen and as a person who was there, I wish it was faster. It's been 2 years. I think just keeping this in the news, keeping the public pressure is all that we could do. You don't want members of Congress to be making explicit calls on the Attorney General because it would politicize something that has been pretty fact-based. But I do think it's appropriate for members of Congress, senators, citizens to say, we want action and we want that action to be faster without prescribing a particular outcome.
This is an interesting question from Lisa Dangs. She says, it seems that McCarthy had to move so far to the right, make so many concessions due to Republicans' razor thin margins. Do you think that, ironically, had more Republicans won, will we be looking at a less extreme rules package in leadership? And I guess that depends upon where they came from and what the primary process was, but I'll leave it to you, Congressman.
Yeah, no, it's ironic. Look, I think we would have still had the gutting of the Office of Congressional Ethics. We still would have had things in there that on immigration and on against climate that many of us would have been appalled by. But yeah, I mean, presumably he wouldn't have had to go as far to the right as possible. I mean, I think it is a fair statement to say that Matt Gaetz in this Congress has almost as much power as Kevin McCarthy, and that is the reality of what's going on. I mean, at any time Matt Gaetz can get 5 people in his caucus, him and 4 other people, to say Kevin McCarthy no confidence vote, Kevin McCarthy would lose the speakership. That's a lot of power to have. Most members of I could probably get 4 members of Congress to vote with me on an issue pretty often. And so it's going to be a very right-leaning extreme speakership.
One of the questions relates to the debt ceiling, and again, I think although it's not directly on the insurrection, it's part of this general theme of trying to undermine regular order and put our full faith and credit at risk. What is your prognostication as to whether the Republicans will cooperate on raising the debt ceiling, or are they going to create procedural rules that'll make it very difficult for the House to raise the debt ceiling?
I think they're going to create procedural rules that makes it very difficult, and they've got people who traded their vote to McCarthy saying, I want to make sure we don't raise the debt ceiling. And again, I think if there's one point that people hopefully can get out is the debt ceiling, raising it is not about future spending. We can have the debate. That's what Congress is for, about whether we need to have massive cuts or not. And I will say it's terrible. And Social Security, we need to be increasing, not cutting. And a Republican has the right to say we should be cutting Social Security. I totally disagree with it, but that's their right in political debate. But to not raise the debt ceiling is not about cutting spending. They're basically saying the spending we have already done, the obligations we already owe, we don't want the United States government to pay those obligations. We want to default on those obligations. And that is a very dangerous attitude, much more dangerous than just a debate about do we cut spending.
Right. Can the House defund, Mark Grossman asked, can the House defund the Department of Justice to the point it cannot proceed against the January 6th prosecutions?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't think it's going to get to that. I mean, they'd have to really start to defund the apparatus of justice, which would leave Americans unsafe in many ways. But I don't put anything past the Congress. Don't give them any ideas. I mean, I don't put it past them to try to link appropriations to that. Now, the good news is the Senate is in our hands, and a lot of this may end up in a stalemate where the House tries to do something, the Senate doesn't agree, and we basically have continuing resolutions, means spending of last year levels. Unfortunately, on the House Office of Congressional Ethics, you don't need the Senate. It's just the House. So in things like that, the House has a lot more power.
I see. What advice, Remy Parmar, this is, a generational challenge that we have. The democracy is, as I said, never guaranteed. What advice should we share with high school students in terms of what they can do year-round to organize their voices besides just registering and going out to vote?
I think participating in town halls, participating in conversations like this, finding causes that you're passionate about. And I guess the advice I have for young people is they're going to be there not now, but 10, 15, 20 years from now. And that future to me is much brighter when I look at the young people's commitment on climate, on racial justice, on economic justice. So as turbulent as the times may be, as discouraging as it may be, take the long view and take the view that your activism will have an impact, even if it's momentarily for a year or 2 years, very discouraging.
Claire Rosenfeld asks, are they, presumably the Freedom Caucus and the Republican Conference in general, the House of Representatives, are they aware of the dangers of their own policies?
Well, their goal, and many of them they're anti-institutionalists. They want to blow up the institutions. And so many of them come to Congress to disrupt, to make these institutions not work. And it's very sad, but that's why they're here. So they thrive on chaos. They view that as success.
This is actually my own question, Congressman. One of the things I found frustrating about the coverage leading into the speaker election was the notion by all of the supposed pundits in DC that, oh, there's no issue that McCarthy will get elected speaker. Very few predicted 15 rounds. After what we've had in January 6th, part of the role of the press is really to be a check on our governmental institutions. And we seem to have an inside club where everybody wants to get their scoops and have good relationships across the aisle. How do you expose that? I mean, how we have very, as you know, back in Fremont, we don't really have any local media. We don't have good public scrutiny at the local level. Have you looked at the issue of the role of the media and how we can change that dynamic as well?
It's a very important question. You know, even in, David, the 6 years I've been in Congress, I mean, look at the Mercury News and how much it has gone down. I often lament that I have an easier time if I get something done getting covered in the New York Times than the Mercury News, because the staff has been so gutted. Yeah. And I think local papers, not just in our area, but in rural communities, small towns, the fact that that has diminished is a real problem. It's one of the reasons you get people like George Santos. I mean, that's the job of the local press, not the job of the New York Times or the national press. And we don't have that accountability. And then I do think there's a lot of groupthink. I mean, I was, my wife, when I was coming on January 3rd, you know, she's kind of said, well, or someone else said to me, you know, McCarthy's may not have the votes. He's going to have the votes because everyone thought he's going to have the votes. But, you know, that is something that I think we have to get past the groupthink, and there's too much of that.
Yeah. From S. Moore, Congressman, what is your expected predictions on the right wing to cut Social Security? Are there any possible safety nets being discussed or considered if they are successful on cutting Social Security benefits?
I think they are going to try, and I think the job of House Democrats is to make sure we don't cut them in any way, and to make sure that the administration and the president is firm that he will veto it, and the Senate is firm. So they can't cut them without the president's acquiescence, without the Senate's acquiescence. So I just don't think it's a starter.
Good. Similarly, and I'm going to just broaden this because this really is about specifically what we do to preserve our democracy, which is a threshold or a gateway issue to Social Security, and everything else as important as those issues are. So I'm going to rephrase the question here. All right, can you advise about moderate R's and Republicans to whom appeals from citizens might be effective? Emails, mail, urging them to protect the integrity of our democracy. Do you think there's a list that we can develop that would be helpful?
I do. I would start with people who certified the election and reach out to them. And there are about 100 some of those Republicans. There are people like Brian Fitzpatrick, people like David Joyce, those who voted for the certification of Biden and Harris. And I had floated, you know, that I would have been open to voting for one of them for speaker if they had committed not to hold our country hostage to the debt ceiling debate. But I do think we have to work to build with some and advocate with some of these moderate Republicans, but not get our hopes up too much, because all of them are, in my view, going to end up voting for this rules package. So they fall in line, but we have to try.
Well, I would commend you to keep trying, because I think that, you know, your own prescription that McCarthy may have a vote of no confidence may result in looking at other speaker opportunities. So that to have that, rather than being reactive to perhaps the inevitability of McCarthy having to run again for speaker, that would be a useful opportunity too, to have more like a parliamentary system within Congress, which would be interesting. What can we do regarding participating in more? Benita asked this. How can Benita Verma, I know you know her, how can we encourage people to participate more in elections and politics when there's such a huge divide? How can we make politics and elections more appealing?
It's a great question, and after this, I'm going to have to go to the floor to
Very
the
good.
process. But look, I understand why people right now are turned off. I mean, it could be very draining. We're not talking about improving people's lives. We're often talking about very negative things. But I think for me, it's seeing with the young people and their commitment to tackling climate and remembering what we've achieved together in these last 2 years. We passed the largest climate bill in American history with climate investments in solar and wind and battery. We passed the CHIPS Act to bring Intel and TSMC here, semiconductor manufacturing back. We passed the American Rescue Plan to give a child tax credit to so many young kids and massive investments in our schools. We passed an infrastructure bill. So those are the things that make politics worthwhile. And I think it's going to be a hard 2 years. I don't want to sugarcoat it, but if we work hard and we get our point of view out, we organize, then we can have a big victory in 2024. And we could finally get the House, Senate, and presidency with some decent numbers. And I think voters showed in the midterms they're opposed to extremism. They want to stand for democracy. And at some point, I think this 50-50 thing is going to break. And I'd like it to break in our direction. And when it does, we can really build on what we achieved the last 2 years. So I just want to thank you for your activism, your involvement. Don't get discouraged, because your activism, your involvement is why President Biden is there. It's why we won the midterms. It's why, despite the obstacles, we are continuing to make progress. And I want to thank you for that. And am deeply grateful to you, and grateful that you invited me to share some of the thoughts.
Congressman Khanna, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and we are so honored to have your participation and your thoughts today on this critical issue. And on behalf of Livermore Indivisible and Public Citizen and Joanne Helmberger and Kyoko Takayama and me, and on behalf of all of our wonderful participants in an afternoon on Monday in California, thank you, and go vote no on those rule packages.
Thank you, David, Joan, Kyoko, everyone. Thank you so much.
Take care, Congressman. So on behalf of the organizers, we want to thank you for your wonderful questions this afternoon. Joanne, I'm going to turn it back over to you if you have any final comments and next steps for people to stay engaged. And again, Joanne and Kyoko, thank you for organizing this Zoom meeting this afternoon.
Well, I want to thank everybody too, and David, you did a wonderful job of being our commentator and our moderator, and I'm happy that we had so many participants, even though we had a lot more than that signed up. But I still feel very frustrated that things are happening so slowly, and I hope that people will really stay tuned and keep working at this, keep writing to your letters to the editor, to your congressmen members and senators, and just keep it going. We can't let this be what happens to our democracy.
Now, Joanne, isn't it true that by registering their emails, they're going to get emails about future events as well?
Normally, that's what happens through Public Citizen. Yes, they do keep sending you other things that are happening. And Kyoko, do you have a list of all the organizations that we can work through?
Yeah, so I can just summarize what we can do next. So the Public Citizen organized entire January 6 rallies. But that was effort of the big coalition, which is called Declaration for American Democracy. So I just put the links in the chat. So please go and check it out. Almost every single organizations on earth are actually the members. So it doesn't matter which organization you're working on, stay active. That's what we need to do. And if you want to learn more about how to fight MAGA, Indivisible just published a new guide, how to defeat MAGA Republicans. And the end goal is in 2024, we regain the Dem trifecta. And meanwhile, we have lots of work to do. So it's just too much to talk about it in short time. So there is a meeting by National Indivisible. So please join the deep guide of the new guide. So you will learn what you can do. That's one thing. And regardless where you live, please stay in touch with your representative. It doesn't matter if they are Democrats or Republicans, they are going to listen to you, only you, not others. So you need to stay active and keep their phone numbers handy. So every time they do something you like, you call thank you. And every time they do something you don't like, they call I don't agree with you. That's something we have to do. Democracy is not spectator sports. We have to do this every single day. So pace yourself, stay healthy, and have a good activism going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyoko and David. And everyone.